Now it's 6 days of deliberations coming to an end.
The defendant is not guilty.
A former deputy breaking down in tears.
I would never want any SR, any law enforcement officer in this country to go through what I went through.
But the verdict not sitting well with some.
There's no excuse for running away. We watched them turn tail from that building.
On this emotional decision day. Hello and welcome, everyone. He was accused of failing to act during the Parkland massacre.
The jury found Scot Peterson not guilty on all 11 counts. 7's Brandon Byers at the courthouse now in Fort Lauderdale. Brandon.
And Craig, it was an emotional moment in court for both sides on this trial. And the jury certainly took their time in making this decision. Some 20 hours of deliberations translating to almost 4 full days to come to this verdict.
We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant in this case. The defendant is not guilty. Not guilty. Is not guilty. The defendant is not guilty.
Former school resource officer Scot Peterson found not guilty Thursday afternoon, facing charges of child neglect and others. The former deputy has been acquitted.
Mr. Peterson, I think that concludes your business. At this point, sir, the jury having found you not guilty on counts 1 through 11, I will likewise enter an order of acquittal.
Peterson was charged with not confronting the shooter at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School 5 years ago, instead taking cover outside the 1200 building for 48 minutes. Prosecutors say he failed as a caretaker, but the jury disagreed and found Scot Peterson not guilty. Outside of the courtroom, he celebrated with his attorney.
We've got our life back after 4.5 years.
5.5.
Because of Mark.
Yep.
And being able to put the truth out of what happened. It's been an emotional roller coaster.
Peterson is the first law enforcement officer to ever be charged in a mass shooting case. His trial drawing international attention.
The only person to blame was that monster. It wasn't any law enforcement. Nobody on that scene, from BSO, Coral Springs, everybody did the best they could. We did the best we could with the information we had.
It's not just a victory for Scot. It's a victory for every law enforcement officer in this country who does the best they can every single day. How dare prosecutors try to second-guess the actions of honorable, decent police officers?
So you heard there from Scot Peterson moments after he walked out of the courtroom. Excuse me. You also heard from his attorney, who you saw the two embracing there moments after he walked out of the courtroom. Prosecutors choosing not to comment, but their boss did offer some statements to 7 News in the moments after this verdict was read. I want to read part of what their response was coming from the state attorney's office. For the first time in our nation's history, prosecutors in this case have tried to hold an armed school resource officer responsible for not doing his job. This statement goes on to read, Peterson's inaction and the misinformation he provided to law enforcement officer had a dire impact on the children and adults who died. He stood by, leaving an unrestricted killer to spend 4 minutes and 15 seconds wandering the halls at his leisure, firing close to 70 rounds, killing or injuring 10 of the 34, and educators who bore the brunt of this massacre. Again, Scot Peterson, the former school resource officer at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School during the attack, found not guilty on all 11 charges. We're live at the Broward County Courthouse. Brandon Byers, 7 News.